Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another awesome episode of On the Throttle with Jackie Van Ham and my buddy Josh, bringing you all of the newest news going on out here in motorcycling and power sports. And today, Josh, woo, it is action packed. I literally have every electronic device I own and a notepad and paper, taking notes, organizing myself for today's show because it is a doozy. You are not going to want to miss it. Make sure you go ahead and hit that share button so all of your friends don't miss today's episode as well. We are going to be talking about, in my neck of the woods, I'm talking about some very cool new bikes from the folks over at Super 73. I'm also going to be talking about a little bit of news going on from this weekend's race for MotoGP in Argentina. And as we have been hosting the last several weeks, today is another bonus round episode. I've got another great interview from AIM Expo about some really cool helmet technology. You're not going to want to miss it. Josh, what do you got going on in your neck of the woods?
So I have a question for you. Do you use Kleenex or facial tissue? So that is, we're going to talk about that idiom in power sports. And then we're going to talk about how a company is taking ADV gear and kind of turning it on its head, or actually turning it inside out.
Man, you always keep me guessing, Josh. We're all going to have to
That's
wait
what I
to
do.
hear that story and all of our awesome stories today after this word from our sponsor.
From the trails to the track, DID chains are manufactured with the highest quality materials and designed to give you an optimal riding experience and are the top chain choice worldwide. When performance, quality, and consistency matter, go with DID. What drives you?
Welcome back, everybody. So let's go ahead because it is going to be a huge episode today. Let's just jump on into it. My very first story for today is talking about the folks over at Super 73. If you're not aware, this is a US based company that makes very cool little e-bikes. Transparency alert, I own one of these. I absolutely love it. And they just released several new machines, which is very cool to really flesh out their lineup a little bit more. So let's go ahead and jump on in and start talking about it. First things first, the slide on your screen right now is because they have announced that they are going to be jumping into the mini itty bitty kid bike e-bike game with these very cool Super 73 K1D, which looks like kid when it's spelled out. Very clever. K1D bikes. Super 73 is launching its first youth series vehicle developed with a perfectly complemented blend of fun and safety. The Super 73 K1D offers a best-in-class electric balance bike option for kids ages 4 to 8 years old. Available in 4 colorways, the K1D's design was influenced by the 1980s BMX and motocross culture to create a neo-retro balance bike with a 60-minute playtime. Further separating itself from the competition, Super 73 emphasized a technology-focused theme throughout the kids' electric balance bike, including innovative technology such as regenerative braking and the safest battery in any kid's balance bike. Super cool lineup out here. I love seeing these, and it's so smart to watch e-bike companies go ahead and really flesh out their portfolio and flesh out their offerings, because what better way to sell bigger e-bikes than start them on smaller e-bikes, right? And move them through the product lineup. So I think those are very, very smart. This is definitely something that's going to be going head to head with companies like Stasic and a handful of other balance bikes out there, but very cool. I love that this has that BMX vibe to it. A very, very neat bike. Go ahead and throw that next slide up, Ashley. I've got a whole bunch of slides going on today because I really was excited to show you some of these machines. Oh, so this is going to be another style that is new from the folks over at Super 73. And what I would like to point out on this bike that really sets it apart and really ups the ante for the folks over at Super 73, that would be rear suspension. Woo! Look at them go, adding rear suspension to these machines. Like I said, I do own one of these, one of the OG machines, and I love this bike, but woo, has she been kind of a rough ride. So I'm really excited to see that they have upped the ante. They've added some suspension to these bikes. Again, this is part of the new Super 73 Adventure series. This is an all-new aggressive line of electric vehicles that, based on rider-inspired feedback, will add suspension across the entire lineup. This series is packed with features and adjustments to make riding easier, including more aggressive tires, a performance seat with an extended 2 inches of seat for you and a friend, relocation of the battery to the down tube, and headlamp. Additionally, the 8-speed kits come standard on the Adventure series. The lineup includes a Z, an S, and an R. And it comes with a whole bunch of new colorways as well, including this RSD Roland Sands designed kind of mash up, a little bit of a collaborative effort out there. Very cool, very trick looking bike. I love this. Look at those chonky aggressive tires on this. Very cool. Next slide, Miss Ashley. I did try to throw several of the different colorways in the slides for today's program. So again, you can see another one of these new versions of the Super 73 with that rear suspension, that big chonky tire. This, however, has the more traditional, I'm going to use the word tank, although it's not really a tank. It's the battery located up on top to give it a little bit more of that kind of motorbike styling to it, and that high front fender. Next slide, please.
Look at that.
So then we got, again,
yeah,
I know,
Supermoto
some new
I see in
colorways.
there too.
Right? I love the look of this. Again, so now you can see they've moved the battery again down below. This has that camo, that little bit of like murdered out vibe, super aggressive. I think this is a very, very cool style, really neat. And I cannot bang on this enough about the rear suspension. I cannot wait to ride one of these. Well, I think I got one or two more slides going on in here. The other thing I wanted to mention while we're talking Super 73 is, of course, this they revealed within the past handful of months. I got to see this machine at EICMA in Milan in November. This is the Super 73 C1X, which is their first offering that is definitely in a much more motorcycle type space. They are taking deposits now for this machine. I think this is slated to possibly hit dealerships. Let me go and see if they touched on this. They did not touch on this. Their other bikes, I think, are coming this summer. But they're still taking deposits for this guy. Very cool, very slick looking bike. And it is definitely their toe in the water away from e-bike bicycles and heading into more of that e-moto category. Josh, what do you think about the cool new machines from Super 73?
To me, so the first one that I saw that I really loved there was the one that basically had the slick type tires, because it was like it's totally supermoto. I mean, to me, for them to do a refresh on their stuff, first off, it's due for it. And I think they're going to capture a much different audience with this type of stuff, just because of the fact it's got that suspension. It's got more of that aggressive look. I mean, it's updates from them without having to reinvent the wheel. And to me, it's that type of refresh that I think is going to keep them at the top of their game, where they've stayed for quite some time.
Yeah, they have also introduced a couple, and the nice thing is also in this release that they just dropped this past week, this is a little bit of breaking news, beep, 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 beep. They did release also a couple of different machines that they've already kind of had the last several years, but I think they adjusted the pricing on them. So now the price point goes all the way for the bigger bikes, not the kids' bikes, but for the bigger bikes, it goes all the way from, I think, like 1,600 up into the 3,000. So there's a really big spread in here, and it's very, very accessible for a lot of different price points is what I'm getting at. So congratulations to the folks from Super 73. I love the look of some of these bikes, and I personally cannot wait to ride them. Now, Josh, what do you got going on for your first story today?
So back when I was younger, it was always, hey, I'm taking the Jetski out. But it wasn't actually a jet ski. The Jetski is Kawasaki's name for their personal watercraft. And this year, Kawasaki is celebrating 50 years of exhilaration by celebrating 50 years of their PWCs. To me, this is an awesome thing to see. I mean, PWCs have gone through such an ebb and a flow of popularity throughout time, and I love it when I see new stories about them. I mean, I've had jet skis for years, absolutely loved them. And part of the cool part about this is this was one of the first projects that the brand new R&D department that Kawasaki opened in California, this is one of the first projects that they were tasked with. And what they came up with is what you'll see in the next slide here is the stand-up. It was the 400cc version that is just, everyone knows this as the JS 400, which, I mean, they made about 500 of these that first year was all. They went into full production into 1975. Now, to give you a little bit of history of what Kawasaki's done with this also, so in 1986, they had the X2, which was a whole nother model. It offered some sit-down capabilities, and you could actually throw someone in the back, but you both had to have really good balance. it would also act kind of as a stand-up for you. Also, then they upped the game in 2007 with the Ultra 250X. This came out with a ZX14 derived 1498cc supercharged power plant. It went very quickly, yes. In 2017, Kawasaki went back to their roots, and this is what we show in the next slide is the comparison as to where they started. And one of the things that they came up with here in 2017, the SXR came in. This is the, let's say, full circle almost. The difference with this is the SXR is the first 4-stroke stand-up jet ski with all the regulations going around. 2 strokes obviously not being allowed on the water in so many places anymore. Kawasaki realized that there is still those of us that love stand-up personal watercraft, so they came out with the SXR. This uses a very similar, it is the 1498cc engine. It is sans the supercharger. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about and congratulating Kawasaki in terms of 50 years of this, I owned a number of JS 440s. That was a little bit later version of the first one that you saw. The hull was unchanged. The engine was slightly changed. It was a twin cylinder 440. I actually at one point had 4 of those. I will say I had 5 of them because the 5th one was actually in my basement as a showpiece on a stand. It was kind of used as a bar. Nonetheless, the JS 440 in the early 80s, late 70s weighed 244 pounds was all. Now the current SXR weighs 551 pounds. So she's a little bit chunkier. There is a slight difference in engine though. The JS 440 had 27 horsepower and rocketed to 33 miles an hour, which on that haul was death-defying. And then you got the ride plate, you got the other stuff, and you still thought it was death-defying. But it was so much fun, and just the thrust out of it was amazing. The new SXR goes a step beyond that. That is 160 horsepower and 65 miles an hour out of the crate. So Kawasaki, in 50 years, you have more than doubled the speed, and you have, I can't even do that math. That's like 7 times the horsepower out of that same type of jet ski. So kudos to you, Kawasaki. We are looking forward to 50 more years of excellent PWC innovation from you guys. Jacqui, I mean, have you ever been on a stand-up?
Man, that is so incredible. All right, I'm not going to lie. I have never been on one of these, but it is absolutely on my bucket list of things to do. This looks like such a good time. I completely believe that 110%. Very, very cool. I love that you've dug up one of the very first years, or if not first year, of the JS.
Had to.
Yeah, I thought that was super cool. It looked like a 1970s piece of Tupperware. I'm totally here for it. But yeah, I love this PWC rocket ship. Very, very cool. Congratulations to the folks over at Kawasaki for 50 years of good times out on the water. Now, for our interview for today is another interview from AIM Expo. We've been hosting these the last month and a half or so. We had such a great time out in Vegas at AIM, and we made sure to grab some killer interviews with some movers and shakers in the industry, or folks who had really cool products. And this absolutely grabbed the attention of not just me, but the entire team. A very cool helmet and a company that I was not familiar with at all, so I knew we had to grab them and chat with them. This is going to be an interview with Brad Waldron, the founder of Cali Protectives, talking about this very cool helmet we saw out at AIM Expo. Let's get into it. Hey there, motorcycle and power sports news. This is Jacqui Van Ham. I am here at AIM Expo in Las Vegas this week. I had a good chance to walk around and check out some products, and I had to stop and check out this helmet, and there's a reason why. And we're going to talk to Brad from Cali Protectives, who is the founder as well as the lead engineer of this cool product, about why this helmet is very different, because it really did catch my eye. Now, normally, I know if you're a regular watcher of the show, you're going to say, why isn't Josh talking about this? Because Josh is the one who loves getting into safety and talking about helmets. So this one's for you, buddy. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So real quickly, can you give us kind of a chat about why your helmet, what sets it apart? Because the first thing that caught my attention is the lightness of this helmet.
Right. So the normal way to make a helmet, of course, is to make the foam and shell separately and glue them together. So you shove them together. What we do is we actually make them as one. So we do make the shell, and then we inject the foam in place. So you fill all the gaps. What that does is allow me to thin out the shell and make a softer foam inside. Okay. So I believe the helmets are all too hard, and that we need to be using softer foam and just dissipate the energy more efficiently.
What kind of research backs that up?
Oh, spent a lot of time in test labs all around the world.
Okay.
I'm kind of a lab rat.
Cool.
And I use labs in London. I use the University of Strasbourg. So yeah, we spent a lot of time testing.
Okay. And your belief is that helmets currently on the marketplace, other manufacturers, the helmets are too hard, they're too thick.
It's based on our standards. Our standards were written in the early 70s. We dropped cadavers on their heads and we measured skull fracture, right? So that's fine. That's what we knew at the time. So we determined that it took 300 G's worth of force to crack a skull. You know what I have to do today to pass a helmet for DOT? Just make sure that it doesn't go over 300 G's. It hasn't changed. But we've learned a lot more about brain trauma and how the brain squishes and rotates, and we can do better. And so we're not going to wait for standards to change. We're just going to do the research and continue to try and make a safer helmet.
Now, before we start getting emails, I'm going to jump right in front of it. But you have had this tested by standard rating systems.
Of course.
DOT ECE 2206?
Of course.
Currently.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you always have to have an outside lab certify your helmet at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But, they get a few helmets to try. We test hundreds of helmets before we put anything out on the market.
I think it's so interesting. And it's not just power sports and motorcycle. You do bicycle helmets.
We do.
What other spaces are you in?
Primarily right now, it's bicycle and moto.
Okay.
I've done equestrian helmets. I've worked on a Formula One race helmet before. But as a Cali, our focus is on bicycle and moto.
Okay, very cool. What's going on for 2023? What's next for you?
So today we're launching a new helmet called the Octane.
Okay.
It is with all these technologies and more. There's a few other technologies that we probably don't have time to get into, but it's about 1,100 grams.
Okay.
For a medium, which is on the light side. It's not lighter because we cut corners. It's because we use technology to dissipate the energy more efficiently.
Wow, interesting. Okay, now I do love some behind the scenes and I do love product launch. So really quickly, we're not going to get too deep into it. This new helmet that you're releasing here at AIM Expo this week, what other, I'm going to say bells and whistles are in the helmet that you're launching here at the show?
Okay, so we work with a material called REV'IT. This was an invention by an Australian physicist, by a British physicist.
Okay.
And we want to put soft stuff right next to your head. So this is a material that squishes immediately. Because foam takes a little bit of energy to crush. This will start crushing immediately, and it will fold over and start reducing those rotational forces. Now I'll talk about the Australian physicist who came up with an idea called Conehead. He's not really original with his naming, but he came up with this idea that if you put these geometric shapes inside your helmet, it will crush and send energy laterally. Now, other people are using that now.
Yeah.
We were the first to use it. We're still the most aggressive. You can kind of see it in this half-cut shell here. But it works. It helps dissipate energy away from your head.
Interesting. I've seen a version of that in some armor where it's like a honeycomb.
Yep.
And it's kind of the same thought process, I think.
Yeah,
okay.
This material we use in some of our knee pads.
Okay.
And the idea is just to keep skidding off that energy.
Fascinating.
Fun stuff.
I think it's super fascinating too. I love gadgets. I love technology. And you're right. A standard that has been set for almost 50 years now, the technology has gone so quickly and developed so rapidly. And then the materials has what's really progressed. So super interesting stuff, Brad. Thank you so much for taking the time to stop by and chat with us about your awesome helmet from Cali Protectives. Thanks again to Brad at Cali Protectives for taking the time to sit down and chat with us. Josh, what do you think about that, right? A little controversial, huh?
I'll be honest with you. I totally agree with him. Helmets are made too hard because they are made to a former standard. And in that before, it's kind of like how everyone thinks that the 1972 Coupe de Ville is going to protect them in an accident. The car looked great after the accident, but inside you bounced around like a ping pong ball. It's the same thing with helmets. The more cush we have to it, the better. I mean, in an ideal world, we'd all have helmets like in Spaceballs, the movie. But no one wants to ride like that.
Well, yeah, I love that. And I do think it's incredibly fascinating. And what great timing, because your second story for today is going to touch on some more gear and technology. So that'll be your second story. But my second story for today, I wanted to chat a little bit about the race that just happened for the folks over at MotoGP. They are at the beginning of their season. This past race weekend was at a very damp, very soggy Argentina. The race was full of bumping and grinding. There was a lot going on. If you missed it, make sure you go check it out. It lives out there on the internet. I just wanted to touch on a couple of very spicy hot takes from a couple of the racers from this past weekend. Former champion Fabio Quartararo ended up getting into a little bit of a bump and a grind at the very beginning of the race, which put him, I don't want to totally spoil it for you, but I am. It's put him in a little bit of a bad spot for the entire rest of the race, and he was bumped into by a little bit of a serial bumper grinder. Nakagami was the one who bumped into him. Yamaha's Fabio Quartararo says he doesn't understand why Takaki Nakagami escaped punishment for destroying the Frenchman's MotoGP Argentina Grand Prix on the opening lap. And he let out with a couple of very spicy quotes, including, quote, "No, I don't understand what they are doing." Quartararo responded when asked if he understood the stewart's penalty decision on Nakagami. "I watched the Moto3 race. In turn 5, there was an overtake that was really clean, but he slightly touched another rider, and that racer got a penalty, where in MotoGP, we are doing it all the time." So he was really upset about that. There was a couple of other slips and slides. Again, the race was very, very much in the wet, so there was kind of some hot racing action going on. And Fabio Quartararo also is on the struggle bus a little bit with his bike as well. He is not particularly happy this season, which just got started. So for him to already be really bummed out about the bike and let loose with some of these quotes, I thought was very interesting. His quote, as far as going forward, the next race is going to be here in the U.S., Austin, Texas, of course, at the Circuit of the Americas. And his quote was, "If in Austin we have the bike like this, what can we do? Nothing much," says Fabio Quartararo. Again, very disappointed in the bike, the performance, the racing, the track, and the other racers all the way around, not having a good time in Argentina. But do not cry for Argentina, especially if you're riding for one of the Ducati teams, because this year's Ducati World Cup, as it has been called by a couple of other journalists, the MotoGP this season is very hot and heavy for the folks over at Ducati. They're having a great season. I think I went ahead and threw some of the top results from the race. If you've got that slide, Ashley, I think I went ahead and threw that in there. As you can see, the first handful of racers going on, it is Ducati, and then a little bit of Yamaha and Ducati again for top 5 finishers. So that is what happened this past weekend over at MotoGP. Josh, have you been watching the season so far? I know it's brand new. It's just got started. We're only in like race number 2, but it's already shaping up to be kind of a really interesting season.
It really is. And I mean, if you watched the sprint race on Saturday, when you saw, Binder, holy cow.
Yeah.
I mean, this, I think it will shake out to be an interesting season. I think KTM has something in the bag that can keep Ducati on their toes. But I've also judged the Ducati World Cup, and hey, look, they're forking out the bills to do this as long as it's good racing. Yeah. The only other thing that I'll say too is I agree a bit with Quartararo. There's some guys out there. It's like, if you can't pass clean, this is not the area. I mean, you need to get it done cleanly, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And also congratulations on the back end of this story. Jacqui was going to be who races for the Mooney VR, of course, Valentino Rossi 46 Racing Team. I believe this is their first win. So this is the first win for Valentino Rossi's sponsored, backed legacy racing team racing program. So congratulations to Valentino Rossi as well. That's what's going on over MotoGP. Josh, what do you got going on for your second story?
So we are talking about someone's turning ADV gear inside out, and kind of literally with this. So REV'IT has just released the Stratum GTX suit. Now, what you're seeing here is this is kind of innovative. In most cases, when you're wearing an ADV jacket, you put the jacket on, and if you're cold or whatever, you put the rain liner underneath it, and you put the insulation liner underneath that. What this is the base layer to it that is meant to be, it's a breathable mesh that is abrasion resistant. It also is the part that has the armor in it. So rather than taking your big bulky jacket, opening up vents and all that other stuff, and back vents and arm vents and other vents, and suddenly you're like, I feel naked, but I realize I'm not. You can wear this setup, which on the, like I said, the base layer is abrasion resistant. So that way, dress for the slide, as we all say, all your abrasion resistance, all your armor is in this lightweight, breathable base layer that's actually much tighter fitting. Now, if it gets cold, what you're going to be able to do is, I believe in one of the next slides here, it shows that we've got this, there's an outer layer jacket that you can add also. So I believe it's actually the next one where I've got that in. I didn't have these in a great order for us. Is so when you add that outer layer jacket, it is basically set up as just a shell. And one of the nice things about that is if there is an off, if it gets snagged by a branch, whatever, now you're just replacing that outer layer. There's a bunch of really cool aspects to this on how they've really taken this and thought about it inside out, as I mentioned. So that way we've got this cool base layer that you just add stuff on top of, because let's face it, we've all started out in that early morning ride. You go out and you end up, okay, I got to take my jacket off. I got to take one or two layers out of it. Do I need another layer? Whatever. And it's 10 minutes by the time you take the helmet off, you take the jacket off, you put stuff back on, gloves, all that other stuff. If you could just add a layer or take a layer off over the top, boy, is that convenient. Same thing with the rain gear. And in this overcoat jacket that they've got with it, it actually also has a hood that in many cases will fit inside of a helmet. And on top of it, they have set this up so that way that jacket can be worn by itself. So if you're going to get off the bike, go for a hike, do something like that, or you're sitting around the camp, you can put that jacket on and be comfortable without having to wear your armor and everything else that's involved with it. To me, turning the jacket, and they do the same thing with the pants also. The base layer is set up almost like an MX pant, but once again, it's a breathable mesh with the armor inside of it. They've done that with both the jacket and the pants, so that way you can take stuff off, put stuff on, whatever you need to do with it, and it's set up to be so much more versatile. And that outer side is a Gore-Tex shell on top of it, so that way it's breathable. Water will come out. You don't need to stink when you get to the campsite if you sweat a little bit, but it's not going to let the water in. So to me, the pants have full-length zippers. Everything on this is done just extremely top-notch. This is where this may have a little bit of a hitch. Jacket is $1,400. The pants are $1,100. These are pricey pieces of gear, but to me, the innovations that are involved with these, I think they're onto a winner. And when you see the stuff that is out there, I don't think that they are going to have any problem selling them. What are your thoughts, Jackie?
Yeah.
Turning it inside out, it's genius.
Yeah. It is. And I actually really, really like the ideas behind this. REV'IT has long been a very, very innovative transparency alert. I own a lot of personal pieces of REV'IT. I really love their gear. I love their fit. But this is so smart to me for several different reasons. One, the adventure folks that I see ride always have like a baggy setup going on because they're usually riding in warm weather. But all the bells and whistles of your gear can't really work if it's baggy, if it's hanging off of your body. All that stuff is meant to be fitted very close to your body, but people don't want to do that because they're worried that they're going to get too warm. So this like flips it on its head, like you've already mentioned a couple of times, and puts the protective stuff up against your body where it's supposed to be in the first place. So I think that that's really smart. At the price point, it's a little bit of a clutch my pearls for me, but the adventure folks are willing to shell out for it. You know, they're already $20,000.
I want to be comfortable,
Dana. They're going to shell out for it. They're going to drop the coin. It's very competitive in this space. You know, Climb, BMW, all the other players that are in this space. That's how much the gear costs. It is what it is. I don't make the rules.
Exactly.
It's just what it is. So for a waterproof, smart, high-tech, innovative piece of gear like this, you know, $2,500 for that suit all day. While I might do a little bit of this, a lot of folks will have no problem with it. But it is very cool.
To me, it's very much worth it too. And you made a great point. When I'm in the winter, I look like a star kid. I can't get my arms down. I can't move because everything is stuffed inside that jacket. In the summer, it looks like I'm wearing my dad's jacket.
Yes, for sure. So I like that they thought this all the way through and are doing something a little bit different, thinking outside the box. Bravo for the folks over at REV'IT. Sure. So that is another great episode for us over here on the Throttle. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. As always, thanks for clicking, liking, and sharing all these videos, whether you're watching us out there on the YouTubes or on the Facebooks. Thanks for going ahead, smashing that button, giving us a follow and a like. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we will see you next week.